Formed in 1962, the Moremi Game Reserve covers the central and eastern side of the Okavango Delta. The reserve's about 5,000 square kilometres in size.
I'll have scrambled egg and bacon, please.
Scrambled eggs and bacon.
Same, please.
Same.
Yeah, thank you.
Alright, you're welcome.
The reserve encompasses a large part of the delta's wetlands and floodplains, and the main dry peninsula that juts into the delta, known as the Mapani Tongue. Most of the waters of the Okavango originate in the highlands of Angola to the northwest. Rainwater from the Angolan highlands flows into the Kabango River, which crosses through Namibia and into Botswana. When the river reaches Botswana, it becomes the Okavango River, which then filters into the delta. These are my first sightings of the red electri. Red electris are adapted to life in the swamps and floodplains. They have splayed, elongated hooves and very strong hindquarters to push them through the marshy ground. There's lots of warthogs in Moremi. A couple of spur-winged geese. Here we can see a floodplain clearly delineated by the tree line, and as the water recedes at this time of year, lots of green vegetation springs up. This coincides with the dry season and the rest of Botswana drying up. So a lot of game moves into Moremi from the surrounding areas. Up to 260,000 animals move into the reserve to see out the dry season. Moremi, of course, doesn't dry up completely, so it always has good sources of water available. The rains start again in November and go through till around April.
Drive the photographers.
Camelthorn is a southern African acacia, and it likes the sandy soil found in Botswana. Plenty of lions about, doing what lions do most of the time, nothing. Here's a couple of impala, a lot more slender than the red electri. They also don't have the big hindquarters, and they lack the black stripe down the front of their forelegs. Actually, the horns are different as well. This is a little steenbok laying in the shade. It's a male because it's got horns. This is a Goliath heron and a couple of elephants enjoying the marshy ground. And for comparison here, we've got a saddle-billed stork. So between the two, we've got the tallest of the herons and the tallest of the storks. There's lots of rickety wooden bridges in Moremi. I think they're numbered 1, 2, 3 and 4, but I'm not sure which is which. And they're always fun to cross. These are chacma baboons. Zebras in Botswana are a different subspecies of plain zebra to those found in East Africa. They tend to have an intermediate brown stripe between the black stripe. The subspecies Antiquorum, which is commonly found in Botswana, tend to combine the features of boans from East Africa with bajels from South-West Africa. A martial eagle has caught a large lizard. A fleeting glance of some roe and antelope as they ran off. This was just a baby one. This leopard seemed to be on the lookout for lunch. It's funny how sitting in an open-sided vehicle doesn't seem scary at all when you're on safari in Africa. If this was the UK, people would be going bananas. At this point in the proceedings, we were having a bit of a problem with the clutch and gearbox on the car, so unfortunately we couldn't turn the engine off just in case it wouldn't start again. We were really lucky to get this leopard to ourselves, because when we got there, there was another party there, but they lost sight of it somehow, and so they left. And then we found it a couple of minutes later.
Moving.
To be fair, leopards are superbly camouflaged, and if one laid down in the grass, you could be 10 feet away, and you just would not know. This was definitely the best leopard sighting I've ever had. We finally lost the leopard when it headed for the dried out floodplain. There were plenty of warthogs about, which is reckoned to be a sign of a good, healthy ecosystem. When we stopped for lunch, we decided to sneak up on a large pod of hippos that were sunbathing, on the other side of the river of course. We were a good way away. Here I am trying to take photos of swallows in flight. This was the first time I'd seen Sesame. Sesame are close relatives of the topi found in East Africa. They all share the same Latin name, Damaliscus lunatus. Sesame do well in large-scale ecosystems. They live in seasonally flooded grasslands where they follow receding waters in the dry season and retreat onto slightly higher ground in the rains or flood season. Failure of the rains can lead to very extensive population die-offs. We couldn't get too close because the guide said they tend to be a bit shy and a bit nervous. We came to a spot where the river widened out into a lovely pool, and there were loads of elephants having a splash about and a general good time. There were also a couple of hippos there, laying in the sort of grassy verges if you can spot them. As far as I can tell, these are all bulls, just having a good time and having a bit of social interaction. Currently, Botswana is the country with the largest population of savanna elephant. There's around 130,000. The numbers are fairly stable, but they are spreading their range a bit, which is causing increased problems with human-wildlife conflict. Normally, elephants do quite a lot of seasonal migration from Botswana into Zambia, Zimbabwe and Namibia, but these countries allow hunting. Elephants are smart enough to realise this, and their movements have been kind of curtailed in the last few years. They tend to spend a lot more time in Botswana and far fewer of them leave. This puts additional pressure on the environment in Botswana. This probably causes them to move further south into areas that they haven't occupied for a long time, because they just naturally tend to want to spread out. This brings them into increased conflict with farmers. Sadly, the new government has been encouraged to reintroduce hunting under the pretext of controlling crop raiding and stuff like that. Trouble is, the hunters, they actually go for the ones with the biggest tusks. Some of the newly designated hunting areas are actually wilderness areas, and there are no farmers. So it's just a pretext for killing, for money and fun. You should just be able to make out a couple of hippos in the greenery at the back. Finally, we found a pack of wild dogs with puppies. I haven't seen any wild dogs since my first trip to Tanzania in 2011. This was quite a big pack. Unfortunately, they weren't doing a lot when we were there. It was kind of a bit hot, so they'd be resting up. The puppies were fairly active, but the parents were just dozing. Botswana is a wild dog stronghold. Good places to see them include Linyanti, Moremi, Chitabi and Savuti. The global population of adult wild dogs is thought to be about 3,000. If you include puppies, 6,500. Of those 3,000 adults, around 700 are found in Botswana. They are Africa's most endangered predator. They are the most successful predator in Africa as well, with the highest kill rate of any of them. They also inspire the most panic into the other game when they see them coming. I'm also amazed by how relaxed they were in our company, even though some idiot in another car decided to try beeping his horn at them to wake them up. There are some complete plonkers on safari. You will meet them. Please do not be like one.
Turn.
First the giraffe.
Yep.
That's the first southern giraffe we've seen.
Sounds like a fishy.
One of the best features of Moremi is its waterways. There's loads of little pools and backwaters left as the flood subsides at this time of year. I believe the peak flood is around May, because it takes about 6 months for the water to work its way down to this end of Moremi, all the way from Angola. These are our old favourites, the southern ground hornbills. We saw a family of 3, 2 adults and a youngster. They were busily searching for anything they could to eat, be it lizard, snake, amphibian, small mammal, insects, anything just about they will eat. I'm guessing these kudu are getting some minerals out of the materials used to make the road. We're gradually making our way towards the wetter areas of the delta. We're due to meet up with a boat and go and spend a couple of nights on an island. As we do so, we see more and more large expanses of water, more and more hippos. We always have to stop and film a cute baby elephant. The guide thought this baby elephant had only been born a few days ago. Good luck, baby. I hope your fate isn't to get shot for someone's amusement one day. How anyone can kill one of these animals for no good reason, just for the sake of bragging rights or a trophy on a wall, completely beyond my comprehension. They should be left alone. They have as much right to a life as we do, and probably more right than many. They're certainly not busy screwing up the planet like we are. Another crazy bridge.
Water dependent.
I'm not sure what this blue wildebeest was doing here on his own, because there was a load more all sitting down not very far away. Overall, I'd say Moremi is a really nice game reserve. It's got a very wide variety of animals, a lot of different habitats. Photographically, it's really good, and you could spend a lot of time here. Unfortunately, we only scratched the surface. So now we're heading for a rendezvous with a boat to take us for a couple of nights on Gqeberha Island, in the wetter part of the delta. This is the bit that's always shown on the TV programmes about the Okavango.